Sarah Mitchell, a 28-year-old teacher from Denver, always felt like the forgotten daughter in her wealthy family. While her older brother received every advantage, elite education, luxury cars, and eventually a $50 million inheritance plus the family mansion, Sarah was consistently overlooked. At the reading of her grandmother's will, she expects nothing, having been excluded from family wealth her entire life. But when the lawyer hands her a simple envelope, what she discovers inside will not only shock her family but completely reverse their fortune. What seemed like a final act of neglect becomes the most powerful gift of all, revealing family secrets that will change everything forever. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and for 28 years I've been the invisible daughter in one of Denver's wealthiest families. The rain was beating against the tall windows of Grandmother Eleanor's mansion as I sat in the back corner of the mahogany-paneled library, watching my family gather for what we all knew would be the reading of her will. The smell of old leather books and expensive tobacco still lingered in the air, even though Grandmother had been gone for 3 days now. I pulled my simple black cardigan tighter around my shoulders, feeling underdressed among the designer suits and diamond jewelry that adorned the rest of the Mitchell family. My older brother Marcus stood near the fireplace, his custom-tailored Armani suit perfectly pressed, discussing stock portfolios with our father. At 32, Marcus had already inherited Dad's construction empire and expanded it into a billion-dollar conglomerate. His wife Victoria, a former Miss Colorado, sat elegantly in the leather chair closest to the massive oak desk where Grandmother's attorney, Mr. Harrison, was arranging documents with methodical precision. "Sarah, honey, why don't you sit closer?" Mom called out, though her tone suggested it was more for appearances than genuine concern. Patricia Mitchell had always been more focused on maintaining the family's social status than on her younger daughter who chose teaching over trust funds. I shook my head politely. "I'm fine here, thanks." The truth was, I knew exactly why I was sitting in the back. For as long as I could remember, I'd been the afterthought in this family. While Marcus received a full scholarship to Harvard Business School, not that he needed it, I had worked 3 jobs to put myself through Colorado State University to become a teacher. While he was gifted a $2 million penthouse for his 25th birthday, I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill, grading papers at my kitchen table. It wasn't that my family was cruel to me. They just forgot I existed most of the time. Family vacations to the Hamptons somehow never included me due to limited space on the private jet. Christmas gifts were always practical: a winter coat, a coffee maker, while Marcus received cars, watches, and investment opportunities. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "Thank you all for being here during this difficult time." Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell was very specific about her final wishes, and I'll read them exactly as she wrote them. The room fell silent except for the sound of rain against glass and the crackling of the fireplace. I watched my family lean forward in anticipation. Dad's jaw was set with the confidence of someone who'd built an empire and expected to see it continued. Mom fidgeted with her pearl necklace, the one Grandmother had given her on her wedding day. Marcus stood straighter, his hands clasped behind his back like a soldier awaiting orders. And me? I sat in my corner, genuinely curious but not expecting anything. Grandmother Eleanor had been kind to me in her distant way, but she'd made it clear throughout my life that Marcus was the family's future. "To my beloved grandson, Marcus James Mitchell," Mr. Harrison began, "I leave the sum of $50 million. Along with the family estate in Aspen, the beachfront property in Malibu, and the controlling shares in Mitchell Enterprises. You have shown the business acumen and dedication that will carry our family legacy forward." Marcus nodded solemnly, though I caught the slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Victoria actually clapped her hands together once before catching herself and composing her expression into something more appropriate for a funeral gathering. "To my daughter-in-law, Patricia Mitchell, I leave my jewelry collection and the sum of $5 million, with gratitude for the grace and elegance she has brought to our family name." Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, though whether from grief or joy I couldn't tell. "To my son, James Mitchell, I leave the downtown office building and $10 million, knowing that you will continue to honor the Mitchell name in all your business dealings." Dad cleared his throat gruffly, a sound that meant he was fighting back emotion. Despite his tough exterior, he'd truly loved his mother. I found myself holding my breath, not because I expected anything substantial, but because I was genuinely curious if Grandmother had remembered me at all. The silence stretched on as Mr. Harrison flipped through several pages, his brow furrowing slightly. And finally, he said, his voice taking on a slightly puzzled tone, to my granddaughter, Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell. All eyes turned to me. I felt heat rise to my cheeks as my family stared, probably surprised that I was being mentioned at all. I leave this envelope to be opened privately, and the contents of Safety Deposit Box 1247 at First National Bank of Denver. The box key is sealed within the envelope. Mr. Harrison reached into his briefcase and pulled out a simple white envelope with my name written in grandmother's careful script. That was it. No money, no property, no shares in the family business. Just an envelope. The room was dead quiet. I could feel the mixture of pity and relief radiating from my family. Pity that even in death, I was the forgotten one. Relief that they didn't have to share their windfall with someone who'd never really belonged anyway. I stood up on shaky legs and walked across the room to accept the envelope. It felt surprisingly thick, and there was something hard inside, presumably the safety deposit box key. Well, Marcus said, breaking the silence with forced cheerfulness, I think this calls for a celebration of grandmother's life and her generous spirit. Victoria immediately began talking about renovating the Aspen house, while Mom started making plans for a European trip with her inheritance. Dad was already on his phone, probably calling his accountant. I slipped the envelope into my purse and headed for the door, unnoticed in their excitement. What would you do if your family consistently treated you like an afterthought? Would you keep trying to prove your worth, or would you forge your own path? If you're drawn to stories about family dynamics and unexpected revelations, make sure to subscribe to this channel because the next chapter will blow your mind. As I walked out into the Denver rain that October evening, clutching that mysterious envelope, I had no idea that Grandmother Eleanor had just given me something far more valuable than $50 million. Something that would change not just my life, but the entire Mitchell family legacy forever. But what I discovered the next morning would turn everything upside down. The sleepless night felt like the longest of my life as I stared at that envelope sitting on my nightstand. I'd returned to my small apartment in Capitol Hill around 9 p.m., still wearing my funeral dress, still feeling the sting of being the family afterthought. My neighbor's music thumped through the thin walls, and the radiator clanked its familiar tune, but all I could focus on was that envelope. Why had Grandmother left me something so mysterious? And why did it need to be opened privately? At 6 a.m., I finally gave up on sleep. I made coffee in my secondhand coffee maker, the practical Christmas gift from 2 years ago, and sat at my tiny kitchen table. The envelope felt heavier than it should, and I could feel what was definitely a key inside, along with what seemed like folded papers. My hands trembled as I carefully opened the sealed flap. Inside, I found a small brass key attached to a red ribbon and 3 folded sheets of Grandmother's personal stationery. Her handwriting, usually so precise, seemed hurried, urgent. My dearest Sarah, it began, if you are reading this, then I am gone and my final plan is in motion. You have always been the strongest of my grandchildren, though no one in this family has bothered to notice. While Marcus was handed everything, you earned your education, your career, your independence. You have integrity that money cannot buy, and today I am entrusting you with the truth about our family. I set the coffee cup down with a clattering sound, my heart beginning to race. The Mitchell fortune did not begin with your grandfather's construction company, as everyone believes. It began with me, with a small patent I filed in 1952 for a water filtration system that revolutionized municipal water treatment. I was 22 years old, fresh out of engineering school. Yes. Your grandmother was an engineer before women were supposed to be engineers, and I invented something that changed everything. I had to read that paragraph 3 times. Grandmother Eleanor, an engineer? In the 1950s? This was never mentioned in any family story I'd ever heard. I sold that patent to a major corporation for what seemed like a fortune at the time, $100,000. But the contract included royalty payments that continue to this day. For 70 years, Sarah, that patent has generated income. Not just income, massive income. The total amount currently sits at $847 million. I actually gasped out loud, causing my upstairs neighbor's dog to start barking. $847 million? From a water filtration patent? Your grandfather, bless his soul, never knew the full extent of my wealth. I let him believe his construction company was our primary source of income because his pride required it. When he died, I maintained the fiction for your father and Marcus. They think they built an empire, when in reality, they've been living off my hidden fortune for decades. The letter continued, but I had to stand up and pace around my small kitchen. My legs felt weak and my mind was reeling. Everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. Every investment Marcus thinks he made with family money? My money. Every business expansion your father credits to his genius? Funded secretly by me. The $50 million I left Marcus yesterday? A fraction of what he believes he's worth. The real fortune, my fortune, is hidden in various accounts, investments, and properties that only I controlled. I sat back down and forced myself to keep reading. But here's what none of them know, Sarah. That water filtration system, it was incomplete when I filed the patent. I was young and rushed, and I knew there was a crucial element missing, something that would make the system 90% more efficient. I've spent the last 70 years perfecting it, and last year I finally completed the design. The handwriting became more hurried, as if she'd been racing against time. I filed a new patent 6 months ago under my maiden name, Eleanor Hendricks. The updated design is revolutionary. It could solve water purification problems in developing countries, make desalination affordable, and eliminate water scarcity worldwide. 3 major corporations are already in bidding wars for the rights, and the lowest offer is $2.3 billion. I had to read that number 3 times. $2.3 billion. The patents, the hidden accounts, the real estate investments, everything is detailed in the documents inside Safety Deposit Box 1247. But more importantly, Sarah, the choice of what to do with this fortune is now yours. You can reveal the truth and watch your family's world crumble as they realize they've built their identities on my hidden wealth. Or you can choose a different path. The final paragraph made my hands shake so badly I could barely hold the paper. The combination to the safe in my bedroom closet is your birthday, 10/15/1995. Inside, you'll find legal documents that transfer full control of everything to you, effective immediately. Your family believes they inherited $58 million yesterday. In reality, you inherited nearly $3 billion. The question is, what kind of woman will you choose to be with this power? I sat in my kitchen for 20 minutes, just staring at the wall. My upstairs neighbor was getting ready for work, her footsteps echoing above me. Cars were starting up outside as Denver began its morning routine. And I was sitting there, an elementary school teacher in a 1-bedroom apartment, apparently holding the key to a $3 billion fortune. By 8 a.m., I was standing outside First National Bank waiting for them to open. I'd thrown on jeans and a sweater, pulled my hair back in a ponytail, and driven my 10-year-old Honda Civic to downtown Denver in a complete daze. The bank manager, Mrs. Rodriguez, led me to the safety deposit box vault. Box 1247 is one of our largest, she mentioned casually as we walked through the secured area. Your grandmother maintained it for over 40 years. The key turned smoothly, and when Mrs. Rodriguez lifted the lid, my breath caught in my throat. The box was packed with documents, USB drives, photographs, and what looked like legal contracts. On top was another envelope marked, "Read this first." This second letter was shorter, but even more shocking. Sarah, the documents in this box prove that Marcus has been embezzling from what he believes is family money for the past 5 years. He thinks he's been stealing from Dad's construction business, but he's actually been stealing from my hidden fortune. The amount is now over $8 million. The evidence is irrefutable. You have a choice: expose him or use this information to ensure justice in other ways. As I stood in that sterile bank vault, surrounded by evidence of patents worth billions and embezzlement worth millions, I realized that Grandmother Eleanor hadn't just left me money. She'd left me the power to completely reshape my family's future. But with great power comes impossible choices. What would you do if you discovered your family's entire fortune was built on a lie, and you suddenly held all the cards? Subscribe to find out how I decided to use this incredible secret, because trust me, what happens next will shock you. As I loaded those documents into my car, I knew there was no going back. But I had no idea that my decision would not only change my life, it would save my family from a scandal that could have destroyed them all. The real question was, did they deserve to be saved? 3 days later, I called a family meeting that would change everything forever. I'd spent those 72 hours in a whirlwind of lawyers, patent attorneys, and financial advisors, all confirming what Grandmother Eleanor's documents had revealed. The water filtration patents were real. The hidden fortune was real. And Marcus's embezzlement was devastatingly real. But I'd also spent those days remembering every birthday I'd celebrated alone, every family vacation I'd been excluded from, every time my achievements had been dismissed while Marcus was praised for mediocrity. The anger was real too. I'd arranged to meet everyone at grandmother's mansion, now technically Marcus's, on a crisp Sunday morning. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was about to drop this bombshell in the house that actually belonged to me, though none of them knew it yet. Marcus answered the door in his typical casual rich attire, designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Sarah, what a surprise. What brings you by?" "Family meeting," I said simply, stepping past him into the grand foyer. "I've asked everyone to come." Victoria appeared from the direction of the kitchen, holding a mimosa.
They were clearly celebrating their windfall in style.
"Oh, Sarah, how lovely. Are you here to help us plan the renovation? I have so many ideas for modernizing this place." I managed a tight smile. "Something like that." Within 30 minutes, the entire family had gathered in the same library where we'd heard the will reading. Dad sat in his usual leather chair, looking uncomfortable in casual clothes. He was always more at home in business suits. Mom perched on the edge of the sofa, her eyes slightly glazed from what was clearly not her first mimosa of the day. Marcus and Victoria claimed the chairs closest to the fireplace, radiating the confidence of people who believed they owned everything around them. "So Sarah," Dad began, "what's this about? I hope you're not upset about the will reading. Your grandmother always had her own way of doing things." I pulled out a manila folder thick with documents and set it on the coffee table. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you all about grandmother's legacy, specifically about what she really left behind." "What do you mean?" Mom asked, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty. I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would either free my family or destroy them. "What I mean is that everything you think you know about our family's wealth is a lie." The silence was immediate and heavy. Marcus leaned forward, his expression shifting from casual interest to sharp attention. "What are you talking about, Sarah?" "I'm talking about the fact that our family fortune didn't come from Dad's construction company. It came from grandmother Eleanor's patents. Water filtration systems that she invented in the 1950s and has been improving ever since." I opened the folder and pulled out copies of the original patent documents. "For 70 years, she's been the real source of the Mitchell wealth, and she let all of you believe you were successful business people." Dad's face went white. "That's impossible. I built this company from nothing." "No, Dad, you built it with grandmother's money. Every major contract, every expansion, every brilliant investment you made, it was all funded by her patent royalties." I spread the financial documents across the table. "She's been secretly subsidizing your business for decades." Victoria's mimosa glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. The sound seemed to break everyone from their shocked silence. "You're lying," Marcus said, standing up abruptly. "This is some kind of jealous fantasy because you didn't inherit anything substantial." I looked directly at him, feeling a calm settle over me that I'd never experienced before. "Actually, Marcus, I inherited everything. The real fortune. The patents are mine now. The hidden accounts. The properties you don't even know about. All of it." I pulled out the transfer documents, signed and notarized. "As of 3 days ago, I control nearly $3 billion in assets." Mom actually gasped, her hand flying to her chest. $3 billion? That's impossible. "The new water filtration patent alone is worth $2.3 billion, I continued methodically. "Multiple corporations are bidding for it. But here's the really interesting part, Marcus." I turned to face my brother directly. "Grandmother knew about your embezzlement." The color drained completely from his face. Victoria looked between us in confusion, clearly having no idea what I was talking about. "That's right," I said, pulling out copies of the financial records. $8 million siphoned from what you thought were family accounts over the past 5 years. Fake consulting fees, inflated vendor contracts, mysterious business expenses that somehow ended up in your personal accounts. All documented. All illegal. Marcus sank back into his chair as if I'd physically struck him. "Sarah, I was going to pay it back." "With what money?" I asked calmly. "The $50 million you inherited? That was supposed to last you a lifetime, but you've already spent most of it on the Aspen house renovations and Victoria's shopping habits, haven't you?" Victoria's eyes went wide. "Marcus, what is she talking about? What embezzlement?" For the first time in my life, I watched my confident, successful older brother completely crumble. "I had gambling debts," he whispered. "Sports betting. It got out of control. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. My own son. Stealing from the family business. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady and clear. Marcus, you're going to check yourself into gambling addiction treatment immediately. You're also going to resign from all positions in any family business. Victoria, you're going to return every piece of jewelry, every designer item, every luxury purchase made in the last 6 months. I stood up, feeling taller than I ever had in this house. Dad, you're going to learn to run your construction company on its actual merits without secret subsidies. And Mom, you're going to figure out who you are when you're not spending money you never actually earned. The room was dead silent except for Mom's quiet crying. But here's the thing, I continued. I'm not going to destroy you. I'm going to save you. Because that's what family does. Marcus, I'm paying off your gambling debts, but you're going to work them off through community service. Dad, I'm going to help you restructure the business legitimately. And all of you are going to learn what it means to earn things instead of inheriting them. I gathered up the documents and put them back in the folder. Oh, and one more thing. I'm keeping grandmother's secret about being an engineer. I'm establishing the Eleanor Mitchell Foundation for Women in STEM Fields. Her legacy is going to help other brilliant women who've been overlooked because of their gender. As I walked toward the door, Marcus called out, Sarah, wait. Why? Why are you helping us after everything? I turned back to face my family, these people who had never truly seen me until this moment. Because Grandmother Eleanor taught me something important. Real power isn't about revenge. It's about justice. And sometimes justice looks like giving people a chance to become better than they were. What would you do with the power to completely change your family's dynamics? Would you choose revenge or redemption? If you want to see more stories about family secrets and unexpected inheritance twists, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Walking out of that mansion as one of the wealthiest women in America, I finally understood what Grandmother Eleanor had really left me. Not just money, but the wisdom to use it right. And for the first time in my life, I truly felt like a Mitchell. Not because of the name, but because of the strength to carry it forward with honor. The Mitchell family would never be the same. But maybe for the first time ever, we could actually be a real family.